Good morning. Good morning. Happy Thursday, May the 1st, May Day, Ted, as it were, Labor Day for everybody else around the world. Ours is in September. So I guess, I don't know, Americans don't really celebrate this one, Ted. That's kind of, that'll lead into our main topic today, because we're going to be pumping up your book that drops today.
That's true.
You guys are tuned into the Ted Manila Information Show, TMI Show for short, where we bring you too much information. I'm Manila Chan with a frog in my throat.
Grub up.
Manila Chan. And that over here is Ted Rall. We're going to talk about, that's going to be like the thing today. Is our focus is on the workers, especially in this, year of Trump. Or what, 102, 103? Are we on day 103 or something like that?
Yeah, I think 102 maybe.
102? It feels like a million years already. Yeah, it feels like a very long 103 days where, federal workers in the tens of thousands are jobless. Not much to celebrate.
Illegally jobless.
Yeah. And even you and I would say, we're jobless. I don't know.
Immorally.
Could be. Yeah. Immorally, not illegal, immorally jobless, thanks to the last president. So there was that as well. Anyway, warning, not a straight lace show. Curse words are used and oftentimes encouraged here. So
liberally,
if you're not into that, you won't be into the show. We're live Monday through Friday at 10 a.m. Eastern, so please be sure to like and follow this show wherever you're consuming this content so you can support our channel. Today's our official first day as well, Ted, of becoming official Rumble creators.
Thank you, Rumble. We appreciate it very much.
Yes, Rumble, thank you so much. I think we're roughly 6 months old on the show, Ted. So I think that's we've moved fairly quickly through the system. So producer Robbie, thank you for helping us with all of that, of course. So we're going to start posting the what's it called, Robbie?
The what?
The what's it called?
Oh, premium content.
Premium content. I need to learn all the lingo. Like,
in other words, it's just more. It's like us, but like instead of us, it's Clovis talking.
Probably it's
just Robbie Clovis.
Robbie taught us yesterday what it actually means, and it's content specific to people that subscribe to the Rumble Premium program, which gives you premium content from all the people within their creator universe.
It's going to be more controversial stuff that we're maybe a little afraid to release on an unsuspecting public.
Right. Spicier. And certainly it won't be on YouTube. Obviously, this is a Rumble thing. And Ted, what we're going to have to figure out, we're looking at viewer comment. We're asking you to leave comments after the show.
What would you be willing to pay for?
What would you like to see from the TMI show as premium content
or otherwise? Yeah.
And versus
stuff that we don't do that you'd like us to do. Sorry to keep interrupting.
Sorry. Yeah, there's that, as well as the locals premium. That's the one where people actually subscribe to us as an independent show rather than subscribing to the Rumble Premium in its entirety. What kind of content would you like to see? Would you like to see things that are more like deep dive investigative journalism type things where Ted and I can team up and do research? Because that's what we do, right? We're writers and journalists.
True.
That's what we do. We can put that together, and obviously producer Robbie can slap together some videos for us and make it look pretty. Or do you guys want to see spicy talk? Do you want to do Q&A? I know Scary Girl yesterday said in the Rumble chat that she would like to see more audience interaction in those in the premium content, perhaps.
Yeah, maybe we can have viewers come on and shoot some questions at us. Just pop them in, right? There's no reason why not.
How to do that in terms of
we just have to give them a link. We'd give them a StreamYard link.
Yeah, I guess it could be that easy. And then everyone's going to pop on all the time.
Oh, okay. So Robbie's saying Rumble Studio link. So we would give them a link, and I guess it would be an expiring link. And
okay. I don't know how all of that stuff works. So, like I said, producer Robbie will have to school us on it.
But anyway, the point is you could come on. It would be like talk radio. You just come on and you say, "Hey, Manila, what's up with you being awesome?" And then Manila says, "Oh, I can't help it. I was born this way." And then that's it. And then, we move on to the next question.
Yeah. Okay. So we could do something like that. We're open to suggestions. I mean, we may or may not see it if you're suggesting stuff in the live Rumble chat or the YouTube chat, because the feed moves, it moves very quickly. And we are doing a live show, so we're not able to constantly monitor the chat. So if you leave the comment, then it's static, and then we'll take that into consideration and talk about it as a team. Because you guys are the audience. You guys are the ones supporting us, and we appreciate that, because we are all working for that buck on this May Day Workers' Day.
I thought we were all working for the weekend, like Loverboy. Everybody's working for the weekend.
But the weekend don't pay, Ted.
No. Well, neither does the week, really. But like for us.
Yeah. So we would like to hear your feedback on what should be on the Rumble Premium content, as well as the TMI subscriber content, subscriber only content, which is, I want question for producer Robbie. If we do that for Rumble subscribers only, what if they're only subscribed to Rumble? I'm going to pop Robbie on here. What if I don't know if you'll know the answer, but what if they're subscribed to TMI only and not a Rumble Premium person? Can they still see
So what will happen is that they can see the first 30 seconds of the show or the stream, whatever it is.
30 seconds or minutes?
30 seconds. So the first half minute.
Oh.
And then what will happen is that
talk real fast.
Is that you'll get popped in, and you'll have a little notification say that this is premium Rumble content. To see the entire show, you have to sign up to Rumble Premium. There'll have a little link to click on.
No,
the link.
not that one. What
So
if they're only $5 a month subscribers to the TMI show only? What if they're like, we don't want to give it to the company. We want to give it to Ted and Manila only.
Then they'll get access. It's an entirely different thing.
Guys, this is too granular. Let's talk about this offline.
Yeah.
All right. Well,
All right.
Well, we're letting the viewers see in real time. This is yeah.
Yeah. The $5 subscription. The $5 subscription. What that does is directly help cover the cost of the show. That's what that does. The Rumble Premium, what that does, that helps Rumble corporately, and then unlocks premium content. Then Locals is a third thing, which you put content behind a paywall that you have to go through Locals to see.
But do they have to be a premium subscriber?
I feel like they should make this more complicated because it's really too easy to understand.
Oh, I completely agree. And
that's the question.
Yes,
is if they are a premium subscriber, can they see the Locals only behind the paywall?
No.
So that's like ultra exclusive.
So what I propose is, instead of doing the whole Locals thing, is if I have something behind a paywall, make it simple. Just make it Rumble Premium content, and you're done.
Yeah, that sounds right. Yeah, then we have the standard freemium model.
Yeah,
but guys, let's talk about all this offline. We have a show to do here.
Hey, listen,
so
Ted.
This is the show.
I just want to point out, a crap ton of people came in and watched us just dick around trying to see how the multi.
Oh, that's a good point. That's true.
So people want to see the behind the scenes stuff. If you want to see behind, that's what this is.
Premium content will be me taking a shit.
There's a fetish page for that, Ted.
Yeah, there is.
I don't know if it should be on TMI. Just like they have like
way too much TMI.
Foot fetish page. Oh god.
So
we could have a fetish every week and have a fetishist come on and talk about their fetish. I bet we'd get major clickage.
Oh.
Raccoon play and mongoose love and who knows what else
I had a girlfriend that was a service provider to a dirty used panty fetish club.
Yeah.
Oh, so she provided them.
Mm-hmm.
Was she told go out for a long run and then I
didn't ask all the details.
So they sell they have, I think we talked about this before on the show, but in Japan they have used panty vending machines on the street. Oh yeah,
you mentioned that.
Yeah, and I was like, yeah. Mm-hmm. And I was always thinking it was like
New York needs that. They have Narcan.
Well, no, are you kidding? It would never last in New York because people would break the machines. I'm not even kidding.
It was a great side hustle.
Do you remember the cop bots that NYPD tried to introduce in the subways? They were like, "I am police bot," and it was
the thing that looked like R2D2
or a Dalek, right? It's like it looked like a Dalek, but
like a moving mailbox.
Well, you remember we are the Daleks from Doctor Who, and
no, I never watched that.
Anyway, the point is, it was like this. It was a trash can. It was like a trash can with an NYPD logo and tons of. Anyway, they didn't last because people pushed.
Oh, is that program gone?
Oh no, they lasted like days because they pushed It's New York. They pushed them all in front of trains and stuff. Right off the platform. Bye. See you.
Tens of millions of dollars, just whoosh.
Yeah. I mean, I could have told them that. I mean, if they'd called, I would have been like, "That's going to happen."
This is a bad idea.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that program got shit canned. All right.
Yeah,
All right.
No,
thanks, Robbie.
No, what I would like to do for our first premium show is have Mark Sablota on, just him uncensored. Just let it rip. Just do what you got to do.
He's censored?
Oh, he censors himself because he knows they're on YouTube.
Oh.
Okay. So if you want to have just unfiltered Mark Sablota, then we are.
Yeah, and we've got a pre-tape with Mark anyway because the time change affects stuff happening in his life, and he's got new commitments during our live show, so that's why he hasn't been a guest lately. Mm-hmm. So we're gonna have to pre-tape with him anyway. So, oh boy, I'm scared to hear Sloboda uncensored.
Yeah.
Scary.
Okay.
All right, Raleigh. All right, thank you. All right. So with that, we'll get into all the news. We did put a couple of things up. It's can't not talk about. So let's do it.
Okay, what do we got first here? Okay, so first and not last, 2 months after the infamous White House confrontation, the United States and Ukraine announced that they finally have struck that minerals deal. They were supposed to do it that day. This creates a joint U.S.-Ukraine investment fund in which Ukraine's rare earth minerals will be developed. These are minerals that are used in electric vehicle batteries and consumer and military technology, as well as oil and gas. Future U.S. military support for Ukraine will be counted as part of Washington's investment in the fund. So in other words, if the U.S. sends any missiles or other bang bangs to Ukraine, then that would be money that we would be able to get back in the form of rare earth minerals. The revenue from the extraction of these resources will be split 50-50 between the U.S. and Ukraine. Proceeds will not be used to reimburse us for the roughly $120 billion we sent to Ukraine, rather than send gifted kids to college here in the United States, or take homeless people off the streets, or help people who are poor and have cancer to pay for their medical bills. So that money is gone. Ukrainian President Zelensky says that the deal will give Washington a stake in Ukraine's peaceful future, making it less likely. By the way, if I'm the Ukrainians, like a Ukrainian citizen, I am rip shit pissed about this deal, because it's like, really, Zelensky, like you're literally giving away our natural resources to a foreign country that helped con us into a proxy war against our big neighbor. Like, and like it's insane. Anyway, Trump prides himself on his ability to cut deals, as we all know, and says that he will protect an agreement once signed. Trump said during a presser that the U.S. presence in Ukraine will keep a lot of bad actors out of the country. This is a very strange scheme. Anyway, this is what Kiev is hoping for. The text of the deal recognizes a free, sovereign, and secure Ukraine. I mean, so riddle me this, Manila. I mean, my take on this is the way this is being sold, mainly to the Ukrainian public, I would think, is if we give half of our mineral rights to the Americans, then they will care about us, and they won't want Russia or anyone else to come in and invade us, and because then they would lose access to their minerals. So this is kind of like, you want to
trade for security.
Right, it's a protection racket, right?
Yeah.
Like, nice mine you got there.
Like,
it'd be a real pity. It'd be a damn shame if something happened to it.
The Ukis don't have the money right up front to pay for security service by way of American sons and daughters. Think of it as kind of, Ted, think of it as Christmas layaway. I have a feeling that's going to be a big thing coming back. It was a big thing in the 70s and 80s.
But there's no security guarantees for Ukraine here. The U.S. doesn't say in this agreement,
they think it's implied.
If Russia gets attacked, and if Russia attacks us again, you have to come.
But the Ukrainians think it's implied. That's the thing. They're acting, or at least Zelensky's selling it to his people, that this is implied because Trump will want to protect the great big minerals deal that he made. So it's implied that if, somebody fucks with Trump's money, then he's going to send U.S. armed forces to go get you.
This is one of the dumbest ideas I have ever heard in politics, right? I mean, this is
great for Trump.
Well, sure. But I mean, you and I both know what happened here, right? Trump presented this deal as a fait accompli to the Ukis and said, take it or leave it. And then it's like the Ukis have to go and sell this deal that they don't even like. They know it's bad, but they have to go and sell it to their own people and say, well, actually, they're going to come and they'll save our ass if the Ruskies ever come back,
because they want our minds. Like they're going to save us.
So dumb.
Well, the question here is, how much is little Volodymyr going to get out of all of this? And how much
amount, I'm sure,
are his cabinet members, his high-ranking parliament members, how much are they going to get out of this?
Well, yeah, sure. Because, for example,
they're not voting this up.
Manila, right? Like, okay, so think about it. Yes, you bring up an excellent point here. The opportunity for grift here is massive. Okay, so as a former banker, my first question, which is not answered because I studied this and I looked at the agreement, how do you value these minerals? Okay, so think about it. Minerals have different. How do you? They have different value depending. It has a value in the ground. It's worth more out of the ground. It's worth more. Saying the value it's worth more once it's processed, right? It's
you're thinking value, like if somebody goes, let's say I want to buy a mine. Let's say I want to buy a mine.
Yeah.
Its price is going to be different than if somebody has already mined.
Precisely. Yeah. Let's say I sell you a mine, and let's say I can verify. We have geologists who say there's a 90% chance that this mine has X number of diamonds in it, and you're like, oh, okay, well that's worth money, right?
Oh, so it's spec.
Then there's how much are those diamonds worth when they've been mined? A lot more,
right? And what's the quality of them?
And then how much are those diamonds worth after they've been processed and cut?
Right.
More. Then after they've been distributed all over the world and set into jewelry and then end up at Zales, they're worth a lot more, right? So there's like 10 or 15 steps along the way, in which case, so how do you value these rare earths? Do you value them, at what point? I'm not going to go through all those steps again. But
I feel like Trump is getting the spec valuation on it.
I think there's going to be opportunity to this is where Zelensky gets to do the grift, right? We'll take 50% of value later, but we take now. It's gonna be like that.
I mean, obviously I can see that. The strange thing to me about the deal being signed yesterday is Trump spoke out again, kind of with a slight towards Zelensky. He said that Zelensky tried to last minute alter some terms of it. So Trump wasn't totally thrilled. And in fact, Ted, I think diplomatically speaking, optics matter. The fact that Trump didn't go there or didn't invite Zelensky back here to Washington to ink the deal in person.
That's true.
That tells me there's daylight between them. And
sure. Oh, well, we know that. And even though, and they only had a 15.
The rift hasn't been repaired.
They only had the 15-minute little side meeting at the Pope's funeral.
As we all do.
As one does. Yeah, when I was at the Pope's funeral, I had 20 minutes with Zelensky, So
yeah, when
I was like,
dude, I was talking to my bookie when I went, as a kid at Pope John Paul II's funeral. That's just
sure.
Had to take a call, bookie, man.
That's what one does. Yeah.
Excuse me, Pope.
I was like, hey, Z-Man, I can hook you up with a suit.
So this is I think that says a lot, right? He needs a suit broker, please.
He needs a suit. Yeah, I know Joseph some tailors here in Manhattan. I know some great, Joseph A. Banks, call him up.
So this, I think that says a lot, especially because Z-Man's over there trashing on Wolfie, Vice President Wolfie here, and saying how, things are moving better because Witkoff isn't there and Vance isn't there. So
as if Witkoff had gone rogue or something.
Give me a break.
Give me a break. I mean, it's like the spin on this is not since WMDs have we seen so much brazen lying coming out of the halls of power.
Zelensky is full of shit and saying oh, me and Trump are back. We're besties. We're besties when this guy isn't there to interrupt our relationship. This guy keeps getting in the middle of our bromance. He's totally cock blocking. I have a bromance with President Trump. This guy right here keeps getting in between us and telling us to leave space for the Lord. And I think it says a lot that Trump didn't make a big to-do of it this time and didn't re-invite him back, didn't have a lunch, didn't have a whole state thing, planned ahead of it. They sent basically White House aides to go sign with the finance minister of Ukraine, who looks like she's 28 years old, Ted. I'm not even kidding you. she looks like a fresh grad student. Maybe she's just aged really well, but I'm like, you're the finance minister? Like,
well, they have we know they have manpower shortages there. All right. So meanwhile, over in South Asia, nerves are fraught throughout Pakistan because the authorities there in Pakistan claim to have credible intelligence that the Indians plan to bomb them by Friday, local time. That's pretty much close to soon.
That's soon.
That could be like while we're on the air here, right? Fueling fears of an outright clash between the two nuclear-armed arch rivals. Troops from both countries have been exchanging fire across the line of control in Pakistani and Indian Kashmir ever since that big terror attack in Indian-controlled section killed 26 people a week ago. China and the United States are calling for restraint. Tensions are spiraling rapidly. India has closed its airspace to Pakistan and ordered all Pakistani citizens to get out. Pakistan, meanwhile, denying any involvements in the attack, also canceled visas for Indian citizens in retaliation. The scenes of rapid flight evoked painful memories of the 1947 partition of British India, when Pakistani Hindus and Indian Muslims had to run away from bloody ethnic clashes in the newly formed countries. Over 6 million people died in those clashes, by the way. How bad could it get? The two countries have had major wars in 1965 and 1971. India won both, but that didn't stop the Pakistanis. Both countries have been nuclear powers for more than half a century. And there's been a full, I would argue with this claim, this has prevented a full-scale conflict ever since. Mm-hmm. When the two sides clashed in 1999, hostilities lasted just over 2 months and were geographically limited to the Himalayas. That's true, but I was there, and trust me, it was a full-fledged war. Experts expect a limited engagement this time around as well. But anytime there is conflict between two nuclear countries, everyone has to worry about escalation. So we'll see what happens there. Pakistan has a history of exaggerating Indian, in general, Indian perfidy. So the Indians might well attack. They might launch a pro forma attack to sort of, just sort of show because, this is a very nationalist regime they have in India right now under Modi. And it might be like, look, we've got to swat the dirty Pakistani dogs on the nose, but they're not going to do anything major. I could even see the Indians using back channels to tell the Pakistanis where the attack is going to come so that they can repel it. I really don't think there's going to be escalation. Neither side wants it. India doesn't want it. They just want to make money. And the Pakistanis know that they'll lose again. So there's that.
Well, I mean, look at the imbalance between active military personnel of the two countries. Yep. India's got roughly 14. I don't know. I think they're missing a number here.
No, they're not.
They do numbers different.
They do commas in numbers different over there. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So what am I actually looking at?
So 1.5 million on the left and 650,000 on the right. So basically about just shy of 3 times. The Indians have about 3 times more men and women under arms. Well, I assume it's all men. I don't know if I doubt Pakistan has female soldiers. Could be wrong.
Probably not. No,
but
not.
India may or may not. I don't know.
Okay, because when at first blush, I thought I was looking at 14 million, and I thought that is a fucking insane number. If that was the case, I don't know that.
No, that's not.
But
that's not true. Even China doesn't have that.
I know. So I didn't understand. Russia has an active military of little over 1, like 1.1 million or something.
China has the most, right?
Like, so this is.
I think China has like close to 4.
1.4? 1.4 million, you said?
Yeah, it's 1.4. That's a big army, though.
That's big, and this is
a country that doesn't really.
650,000.
I mean, the thing about the thing is the difference also is that the Indian military is used for the kind of things that Americans understand a military doing, but not the Pakistani military. So the Indian military is they're combat troops. These are like a lot of them. Of course, there's support personnel, but it's an army the way that the Americans understand it. The Pakistanis. Right. most of those people are not soldiers. They're not like doing any soldiering.
They work in the government.
They're running the government. They're like picking up the garbage. Workers. They're teaching. They're like principals of public schools.
You think that's what the Pakistanis are counting here as more than 500,000?
Yeah. So like when it's really time, they've got like 30 guys to go out there and take on the Indians
that are trained soldiers, right?
Yeah.
Much less, few and farther between of pilots or specialized military personnel. So I think this is probably a little bit of a bluff on Pakistan's side to be like, well, we have 600,000.
By the way, I have to tell you a funny India-Pakistan story. So I do. I went on a trip to. I went on a trip.
Do you?
Yeah, don't. I went on a trip, a number of years ago to both India and Pakistan. And so I had to get visas for both countries. So I'm at work at my old day job, and I'm like looking up the where the consulate in Manhattan. So I'm like, oh, that's interesting. There's just like one's a block north of the other. So I'm like, all right, well, I'll just pop over. So I went over to the Pakistanis first, and it's a very old building. And it's like there's all these guys in like shalwar kameezes. The building is ancient. It has like these old, like it was obviously inherited from the British. It has all these old travel books from the 1920s in like those glass bookcases and everything. And it's very like obviously hasn't been renovated since the 40s. So I'm like, okay, well, that's that. So then they're like a week later they call, say, come get your passport, your visa's ready. So I'm like, okay, I'll just go to the Indian side now because it's just a block away. So I go to the Indian side, it's around the block, and I realize the building goes through the block. It's the same building. And like one has a facade on one street and one has the facade on the other street. So in the Indian side, however, the decor couldn't be more different. It's like an Indian restaurant with like the Christmas lights all over the place. There's like there's like disco flashing lights. Like when they call your number, it's like bing 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 bing. It's like being on Who Wants to Be a Slumdog Millionaire, right? It's like amazing. And there's all these women who are running things, not on the Pakistani side, right? But there's all these women in saris. Like on the Indian side. So I talked to this Indian lady who works there. And I go, so this is the same building. And I go, wait a minute. So the building got partitioned in 1947 too? And she's like, that is exactly what happened. The building was partitioned between the two countries. The Pakistanis take the north, we take the south. And I'm like, holy crap. I go, is there a connection between? She goes, yes. There is in the basement. You can go between the two buildings, but it is blocked. And I'm like, so what's down there? And she goes, there is a bathroom in between. We call it Kashmir.
Oh my God. Well, I mean, that makes sense, right? Like you said, it's an old building. So once upon a time, the consulate and the countries were one.
And they split it.
And well, there you go.
It makes perfect sense, but
they're not going back, though. I can promise you that.
Oh no, there's no going back. Although
there's no East and West Germany. There's none of that's happening here.
I don't know that the Pakistanis would go back, but the Indians would definitely reverse partition.
Really?
Oh, they hate Gandhi. They hate that like the partition happened. They think the partition is stupid. It caused much more. It caused problems. It didn't solve problems. So. Yeah, I agree with the Indians. I think they were, it's funny because Gandhi, like literally Gandhi's on all the money and people, they look at him and they're like, fuck that guy. And we think, we revere him.
No, there's secret history. You and I and Scott Stantis have chatted about this offline, right? Of all these people that in world history that we think, kindly of or have these great so-called reputations, and behind closed doors, not very nice people. Gandhi was one of them. Mother Teresa was another. There's a whole, and the people that we thought were just these dastards, like the real Count Dracula. Not as evil as we might think. That's an area Robbie's really into. But I'm just looking at like the military aircraft and all the India's got them way overpowered, Ted. Like how we already heard yesterday that the Pakistani foreign minister said, "We will not nuke. We will not use nukes."
Yes,
so
which we appreciate.
fine. That's great.
Although it's really funny. That's so interesting, right? Like, in the United States, we the standard line is always, if they're asked, would you use nuclear weapons? They always say, nothing's off the table.
Right.
We reserve all options. But other countries often will say, yeah, we're not going to go there.
Like, we won't do that.
Like, I'm pretty sure Russia promised not to use nukes in Ukraine.
Russia said, we're not going to use nukes. And then America was like, but you didn't say you wouldn't use tactical nukes. And the Russians
Right.
are like, shut up.
And you didn't say Simon Says.
Right.
And,
the Russians are just like, oh my God, do I have to enumerate everything? But so here's, we're looking, this news channel, Wyon, did a great, little piece here, and they put together all these graphics of, I didn't know the numbers looked like this. I thought, Ted, I was under the impression that the Pakistani military was more powerful than they actually are, because they wield so much power within their own borders. So I assumed that they had that.
No, they don't project power. They don't project power externally, really.
Yeah, this is
and
no
ironically, neither do the Indians. Think about it. The Indians don't really invade their neighbors anymore. They used to.
No.
They did invade the little tiny Himalayan mountain kingdom of Sadiq. That's forgotten now. I think that happened in the early 60s. But India basically they have a strong defensive posture.
Yeah, I guess that's what this is for, right? Having the nukes and stuff. It's to stave off any would-be incoming, right? And for them to say that they're not going to, the Pakistanis to say, we're not going to use this or whatever. But then still say that they insist that India is going to attack. I mean, it literally could, because of the time difference, it could pop off while we're on air, which at that point, I think the calculus changes depending on what the attack looks like. And I think that's a very risky situation for the people, like neighbors, especially, Ted. I don't know if you saw this, but Erdogan sent a big military plane into Pakistan yesterday, right there. Turkish military plane.
It's like, look, honestly, I'd be like, listen, Erdogan, this is just like the U.S. helping out Ukraine. You can help, but it ain't going to be enough. It just ain't going to be enough. Yeah. Don't even bother.
This could get bad. It could get bad, and lives can be lost, and that would be really sad. When this is, if it's a terror group and you guys don't condone it, it's the fact that they haven't not come out and admonished it is what's worrying to me.
Pakistan has historically been one of the biggest supporters of radical Islamic terrorism in the world, alongside the Saudis. People.
That's kind of a bummer.
I mean, I got to tell you, after 9/11, experts believed that the Bush administration would attack Pakistan because that's where all the Al-Qaeda training camps were.
I can see that.
That's where Osama bin Laden was the entire time, never was in Afghanistan.
Yeah.
So Afghanistan was bullshit. And all the as a source of radical jihad, Pakistan's extremely dangerous. Certainly it depends on who the prime minister is. And, the term deep state comes out of Pakistan. That's where it was invented. Analysts talked about, the term, when analysts who look at the Pakistani government, analyzed it, they were the ones, it's Pakistanis who came up with the term deep state. So in other words, it's basically saying that the prime minister and the parliamentarians, they don't run things. Like, they're there, sure. And it's like, hey, nice to see you, you'll be gone. But we're the generals, the career bureaucrats.
We run the show.
We're here forever, right? We, politicians come and go. We're the bosses. We'll tell you what's what. And so that's what this is. Yeah,
this is, I got to say, Ted, I'm anxiously awaiting, because I'm looking at the clock, and the time difference, it's something that could really change the calculus within the the governments of all those countries that are nearby, because like we said, this could become a proxy war then between, Turkey and China on one side, right, with the Pakis.
The Indians don't need any help. They can handle it themselves. But anyway, really by the way, Robbie has a quick question. Is Pakistan helping the Palestinians at all, or are they just written off? It's neither. The Pakistanis are not really helping the Palestinians, but it's not like the Palestinians are written off. They are the Muslim. Many other countries care about them deeply, but it's not.
And I don't think the Pakistanis have much power either over having a role in geopolitics in along the Gaza Strip. If you think about it, if Saudi Arabia can't, given the Abraham Accords or whatever that Jared Kushner, our vaunted Middle Eastern peace broker, that Jared Kushner cobbled together, managed to broker some sort of, at least ostensibly a business relationship between the Saudis and the Israelis. If the Saudis can't influence what's happening, then sure as hell not the Pakistanis. Are you muted, Ted? Yeah, you are muted.
Sorry, I was muting because I was coughing. I've got major phlegm globber situations going on.
Yeah, season's changing. Or this, Ted, or the next story. Maybe this is why.
Well, let's do that. Okay, so I'm actually excited about this story. A set of chemicals found in food packaging, plastics, and lotions and shampoos has been linked to hundreds of thousands of deaths from heart disease. That according to a new study in the journal eBiomedicine. These chemicals, which are known as phthalates, they're spelled, they're phthalates. They're pronounced, the spelling's crazy, PHTHLA. Anyway, phthalates were responsible for more than 350,000 deaths worldwide in the year 2018. 75% of the deaths were in Asia, the Middle East, and the Pacific, which shows, of course, that there's more and more plastic in these developing countries. While the researchers acknowledge that exposure to phthalates coincides with other risks like obesity and metabolic disorders, these add to the growing evidence that chemicals used in plastics have other serious health risks. Phthalates are a set of chemicals that are added to plastic to make plastic more stretchy, soft, or flexible. In lotions, shampoos, and perfumes, they can be used to retain scents. Okay, well, we could get rid of that. But the chemicals, which are so common that some call them everywhere chemicals, have attracted widespread concern. In epidemiological studies, phthalates have been linked to male fertility problems because they're way up in your jizz, heart disease, obesity, and ADHD, and many other things. The U.S. allows 9 kinds of them to be used in food packaging. They should be banned. These are
hello, RFK, where are you? Are you listening to this?
Good point. They're an example of what scientists call endocrine disrupting chemicals, which tweak and change your hormones, causing a multiplicity of health problems. Kevin Ott, executive director of the Flexible Vinyl Alliance, which represents the makers of polyvinyl chloride, said in an email that some studies on the health risks of phthalates don't meet the higher standards of evidence. The FDA confirmed as recently as 2018 that phthalates are not clearly linked with any health effects, Ott claims. Bullshit. The new study drew on surveys from around the globe that evaluated exposure to food pack, which is one particular type, through urine samples. Then the researchers matched exposure to that chemical to increased risk of cardiovascular disease. They found that phthalates contribute to 13% of all deaths from heart disease in people ages 55 to 64 globally. Hey, that's me. In the United 13%. States, it was around 10%. Cardiovascular disease is the leading cause of death worldwide. In 2021, 20 million people died due to heart disease. I don't like that at all. Not a little bit.
In the U.S., heart disease, I believe, is still the number one killer. So several years ago, Ted, I read this book. Can you see it?
Let me see.
It's called Count Down, not Countdown, Countdown by Dr. Shanna Swan. Excellent read. And she talks about how all of these chemicals have reduced fertility among both sexes, because we know there are two biological sexes, that women's egg counts are down generationally, generation over generation.
Yeah, that's part adding to the fertility crisis.
That's part of the problem, and it's all because of plastics. And when you read this book, it's shocking and terrifying about what all of these forever chemicals and how they get into our bodies and what it can really do to, I mean, these plastics now cross the blood-brain barrier. It crosses into the amniotic fluid in your belly if you're pregnant.
It gets into your brain.
Your baby, the blood-brain barrier. Your baby is getting exposed to plastic before it's even born. Right there, we're looking at the video. I mean, it's showing, that it gets into the placenta. Like, this is crazy. And the things that it does, besides, like, if you're not worried about, popping shit in the microwave, in a plastic container, like, then you should worry about your hormonal imbalance. There's just so much testosterone. She's talking about how, in this book, how testosterone, basically, the greatest generation, right? That generation, those boys had far greater levels of testosterone and active motility in their sperm than today's, let's say 20-year-olds now versus 20-year-olds during the greatest generation. They have those men then had almost double, Ted, what would be their grandkids or great grandkids at this point, great grandkids, what those boys have in the way of test, in the way of motile sperm. And it's shocking. It leads to a whole host of health problems. And I think with RFK Jr., his, whatever people think of him, politically, at the end of the day, his background was for the good, right? He was an environmental lawyer. He worked to try to get this stuff out of our system, and it's so integrated into everything. Like you said, everything is wrapped in plastic. You can't go to the store and buy anything that's not wrapped in plastic. I mean, hardly ever. You'd have to go to, like a farmer's market to do that. And I'm increasingly more and more trying to buy direct from farms and farmers markets and things like that, because I'm trying to avoid the plastics exposure, because I read that book and it terrified me. And now that RFK Jr. is in the government, right?
He's very quiet these days.
He's talked about, he's kicking out red dye and talking about, I get it, the autism explosion, fine. But what about this? Why do we still have 9 of these forever chemicals still allowed into our food supply, into our packaged goods systems? That we're talking about everything. Everybody, think about this. Your vitamins they don't come in glass bottles. They come in plastic containers. So even when you think you're being healthy, you're still taking in plastic by way of your vitamins. You think you're getting cold pressed juice. Well, unless you're buying, the $50 bottles that only the super rich can afford in glass bottles, you're still consuming plastic. I make it a point. I never, ever microwave anything in plastic. It's always on a ceramic dish or a glass dish, because that's how you absorb it into your food and into your body. And I'm surprised RFK Jr. has not made a bigger deal about this than he has. He's been rather silent, as you pointed out, Ted, and only just hit on a couple of issues. I think, Ted, I suspect what he's finding out now that he is in a position of power, just exactly. I mean, I know that he knew, but I think he's seeing firsthand now just how much corporate interest and money is involved here.
Oh, I'm sure that's true. And then also I'm sure also that he's been told by the Donald, like, listen, I don't want you.
Picture of health.
Well, true, but I'm sure he's also saying, I don't, we'll let you have some spotlight later, but right now it's the beginning of my administration, and the spotlight has to be on me. Trump is very jealous of any kind of move to draw attention away from him, and it is the beginning of his administration. I think it's more like, you can do your health stuff behind the scenes, but in terms of making appointments and raising hell, that's going to be like, in a year, maybe, later this year.
Not now, not right this moment.
And I don't even know that I blame Trump for that, really.
Well, Doge kind of stole his thunder. Maybe that's why Elon's on the way out. I mean, his time was
Elon's on the way. He said he was. All he's doing is Elon's just doing what he said he was going to do. He said, "I'll give you 6 months," and then he gave him 6 months. That's it.
Yeah. So, but in that time,
people are shocked that people do what they say they're going to do.
Right. Well, in that time, Elon has stolen Trump's thunder quite a bit.
Yeah, I'm sure Trump's not psyched about that. On the other hand, he stole the thunder that Elon's getting blamed for stuff that is unpopular.
Taking fire, taking incoming.
Yeah, so that's probably Trump. Trump loves that. And all right, let's keep going here. A climber.
This one's great.
By the way, just to follow up what you were saying, indeed, you're correct, Manila. Heart disease is still the #1 cause of death in the United States, followed closely by cancer. And interestingly, #3 is COVID. 267,000 people died of COVID in 2023. I assume those numbers will continue to decline, of course.
I'm cynical about those numbers. Comorbidities and other things. I think there's a difference between dying with COVID rather than
there's a difference.
From COVID.
No, of course there's a difference. All right. So a climber airlifted with altitude sickness from near the peak of Mount Fuji in Japan last week decided he hadn't had enough abuse and decided to go back to the slope and had to be rescued a second time 4 days later. That, according to Japanese authorities. Officials are urging people to be aware of the harsh conditions at the country's tallest peak during off-season. The climber is a 27-year-old Chinese student who's living in Japan. He made an emergency call on April 22nd, and then the Japanese government airlifted him after developing symptoms of altitude sickness, also saying that his climbing irons were damaged. On Saturday, he decided to go back for more abuse to traveling the Fujinomiya Trail, about 3,000 meters, that's about 10,000 feet above sea level, to look for his cell phone and other belongings that he left behind. This, according to prefectural police in Shizuoka. Another climber found him there, unable to move, as after he developed altitude sickness. Again. The hiking trails are only open officially from July to early September, but there's no penalty for hiking off-season. There's also no charge or penalty whenever a climber needs to be rescued. What? But Japanese taxpayers are pissed off, and they're saying that he should be charged, at least for the second rescue. And so the local police said, be careful of that mountain because Mount Fuji has low temperatures and is covered in snow, even in the spring. This is very different. I had a friend who climbed, I think it was Everest. She and a bunch of her friends, and they fell. Basically, one of them fell and dragged all of them down a mountain. Right. And so they fell several thousand feet. And so they had to call this using a satellite phone, call for a medevac from the Nepalese government. And the Nepalese, they send a helicopter up there. It's extremely dangerous for the rescue party because helicopters they need lift. And at high altitude, there's not much lift. Especially during certain seasons. So anyway, they can risk their life doing this. It's expensive. So finally, the Nepalese, Nepal's not a rich country. For them, the Mount Everest is supposed to be a moneymaker. So on the phone, while they were like hoping to be rescued, they're like, you have to promise this was a long time ago. This was in the 90s. You have to pay us $15,000 for this rescue. If you don't agree to that now, we're not coming to get you. So they said, okay, we'll pay. And they did pay. And I'm sure it's more now. But the government of Nepal is like, if you get into trouble, on Everest or any of our other big Himalayan mountains, that shit's on you. We'll come and get your ass but we're charging for the taxi service. I think maybe it's time for the Japanese to consider something similar here.
Yeah. Have you lived? Was that right? You lived in Japan, or you traveled there a lot?
I traveled there a lot.
Yeah, for the Japanese bank you were with. So did you ever see Mount Fuji in person, at least from a distance?
I saw it from a distance. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So, what I'm trying to understand here, and I know the Japanese culture is supposed to be, fairly polite, I guess. At least that's, what it seems like.
Very.
So why would they bother having a technical open month for Mount Fuji? Like, we're open July to September. That's it. But you also don't get in trouble for going at these harsh condition months. So why bother having any of and then you're going to pay to rescue the idiots that go at the harsh months. So I can answer that question, because as you know, right, Asian culture is far more collaborationist than Western culture, less individualistic. Mm-hmm. And the Japanese are absolutely the most like that of all Asian cultures. So in Japan, it doesn't occur to people, they don't understand the idea of you would just do your own thing in an inconsiderate, loutish, stupid way like this. Well, this kid was Chinese, though.
That's right. And the Chinese are far wilder and crazier than the Japanese. The Japanese is what? He didn't do the right thing? That's unheard of for Japanese people. Cultural conformity is everything. It's core to their culture. So this is a country where the first time I visited, my boss said, the restaurants in Tokyo, some of them are tiny, so tiny that there isn't enough room. We used to still carry briefcases. There's not enough room to bring your briefcase into the restaurant. You're all lined up shoulder to shoulder at a little counter. So literally, you'd walk outside the restaurant and there'd be a stack, a row of people's briefcases lined up with their laptops outside on the sidewalk. And I was as a New Yorker, I was surprised. And he said, and he's like, this is Tokyo. No one will take it. Nothing will happen. And that's true. So it's the conformity level. I mean, the police don't carry guns. They don't need to. The Japanese are, they're extremely civilized people. So,
and then of course you have the rowdy Americans in Okinawa, on the Marine base, right, in Okinawa, that travel all over. So, with the U.S. trying to increase its military footprint in Japan once again in order to surround China, right? I would recommend that the Japanese think twice about having some form of more harsh weapons and harsh rules, because you're getting a lot of non-Japanese people into your areas that are not going to listen to your rules. That you're and the rules are kind of flexible. They're well, we're only technically open July to September. You probably shouldn't go in April. It's very harsh condition. Please do not go. No. But that's, and being from a loud Chinese background, there's some conformity. I could speak to my own family. A lot of us are kind of rogue. Maybe it's just my family. I don't know. Maybe there are other loud Chinese families out there that are way more conformist. But we kind of are yeah. There's a saying, Ted. Look left, look right. No police, I go.
Yeah, well, no, I mean, for sure. If I had to rank Asian countries by degree of conformity, I would not put the Southeast Asian countries way high on that list, right?
No.
I mean, the Thais kind of are we'd be doing our own thing and leave us alone. And Cambodians are certainly like that too.
No. Definitely very, very, very independent minded.
The Burmese,
I'm going to do my thing.
Oh my God! When I was in Myanmar, the military junta had banned music, I've never seen so much loud partying in my life. It was like everyone's like, we don't care.
Oh,
we're in a military dictatorship that says not to play music. Fuck you. We like music. We're playing. We're blasting and dancing. The soldiers are dancing, listening to music. No one cares. It's like whatever. I mean, and so people who do what they want in a military dictatorship, they're rogue.
Yeah. So, but then, this is kind of annoying to me as if I were a tax-paying citizen, I'd be pissed off at this international student as well. An international student from, I don't care where. In this particular incident, we're talking about a Chinese student. I would be angry and try to make him pay restitution to the city, to the government as well, for a second helicopter rescue because you went up there because he forgot his phone and some of his gear when he got rescued. Phone. He fucking went back up.
What a derp. I forgot my phone.
What? This is where Darwinism kicks in, Ted. And this rescue once, okay, get it. Second time, Ted, Darwinism is all I can say. And the fact that he survived what should have been his last hike, I think he owes the Japanese government some restitution for are you fucking kidding me? You went back up for your phone like this? Are you?
I understand the annoyance. I do understand the annoyance.
What? Oh my God. I'd be so mortified and embarrassed if that were my son. If I was the Chinese mom.
You'll bring shame upon family.
I'd be so mortified and embarrassed.
All of China wish they all commit honor of seppuku, but not
you look
honor
dumb.
Of seppuku.
You look dumb. You look like a moron. So anyway, all right. On to our last topic and our theme for today as well.
Mm-hmm.
I got it up on screen right there, Ted. There's Rall.com.
There it is. All right. Well, so I mean, the theme is me.
The theme is Ted.
It's International Workers' Day, May Day, and here is my new book coming out just today. What's Left? Never mind the Democrats. What's Left? Radical Solutions for Radical Problems. And so this book is basically something I've been thinking about for a long time, right? So the left in this country is completely unorganized. There's used to be a vibrant socialist party. Eugene Debs ran for president and was a significant player. I think he ran 4 times, 1904, 1908, 1912, and 1920. In 1920, he was in prison, and he still got a lot of votes. He was in prison for opposing World War I. But anyway, the nowadays, there's no viable left-wing party. All we have is the Democratic Party, and people keep conflating the left with the Democrats, but they're not the same thing. And so my thought here is, people want to organize a national strike or whatever, and I'm like, you can't have that kind of thing unless you have a party or an organization to organize it. Otherwise, you just look stupid, like that consumer boycott from a few months ago, which nothing happened, right?
Nothing.
And so if you want to have an organized left, you have to build a party first from the ground up. But how do you build it? And I realized, when you ask leftists, what is the left? You're going to get a whole hodgepodge of answers. And I realized a lot of it's tied into wokeness and ethnic identity politics and stuff like that. But that's not what the left traditionally has been about. The left has been about workers' rights. It's about it's about opposition to capitalism. Now, there's a statistic that I love. Gallup poll every year asks people, do you have a favorable or unfavorable view of socialism or capitalism? 40% of Americans consistently say they have a favorable view of socialism. Now, that doesn't mean to say, that they don't. Some of them don't also have a favorable view of capitalism. Some people they like both. But the point is, after multiple Red Scares, the fact that the left is not allowed even to have like a liberal like Bernie Sanders run for office. We're so marginalized. Communism and socialism are not taught in public schools. Despite all that, 40% of American adult voters have a favorable view of socialism. You can build. And so as a thought experiment for this book, what I did is I assume no revolution. I assume the same exact system that we have now, same American capitalist system. You take the federal budget. I don't even get into the state and local budget. Leave those alone. You take the federal budget and you just chop it up and you move it and you redirect all the money away. Most of it's going to the Pentagon, but I basically start with the supposition you can slash defense spending by about 95%. Here's my logic. So what's the military for? The military is for defending the United States from invasions and attacks, right? Well, the United States is about the same size as Brazil. Brazil has a standing army, and they spend about $20 billion a year on their defense spending. Here in the United States, between off the book and on the book spending, we spend about $1.6 trillion a year on defense spending. So obviously most of that money is not to defend the United States, and we don't do a very good job of defending the United States, as we saw like on 9/11, for example. If you want to just take 95% of that money and redirect it to human needs, we can get rid of all the homeless population, not kill them. I mean, we can house them, 770,000 homeless people. We can make college free for all comers. We can provide subsidized and free housing for everyone. We can radically reconfigure our society because we are a rich country. And if you live in a rich country like the United States, that should come with certain privileges. And so I basically go through 20 demands that we could organize around if we wanted to. And it doesn't have to be these demands, but we need to start with a list of demands. We need a party platform. We have to say what it is exactly that we want. And then once you define what the left is, then you can start to build the organization and all that. So that's what this is about. It's like, what's left? Well, this is literally what is leftism in America today in 2025.
Why do you suppose, and I would take this all the way back to the Clinton era, I was probably much like you, Ted. I was raised in a Democratic household, a Democratic community, right? It was like blue through and through and through. They were as Democrat blue as they were Dodger blue where I'm from, right? And enrolled the Clintons in the 90s. And it seemed, and I was a teenager by then, so I was able to kind of understand the nuances that were happening besides the Monica Lewinsky scandal and all this stuff. I started noticing changes in the party's attitudes and what they were saying towards workers, right? And their attitudes towards the working class Americans. And I started, even when I did register to vote in 1998, I remember even back then questioning my affiliation with the party, my position, my faith in that party, because in that time I felt like, with the NAFTA stuff, and it seemed like they were always, trying to, my dad was a union member. I'm a union kid, right? SEIU member. And I remember there being a lot of squabbling with the SEIU over the flux of, at that time in the 90s, Mexican migrants, Mexicans in particular. We're not talking about at this time, at this juncture in the 90s, it wasn't like those from Central America or South America. We're talking strictly Mexicans in that time frame. And that they were coming in and that they were destroying the job market for our local membership, our local Teamsters, our local unions. They were.
But you know why, right?
Jobs.
But you know why, right? Because they were. I mean, that's the split. The Democrats,
and that's when you saw the Democrats start supporting. That's where I'm saying I saw the shift was in the late 90s. The shift in the attitude was becoming more pro illegal migrant than it was pro domestic worker and unions. And I think that's when, for me, it was like when I could pinpoint when the party died, the Democrats and the left, that it fractured and it died and never to be seen ever again.
Robbie?
Well, I mean, here's where I come from, because I read the book, and it's a very good book. I'm a right winger, and I agree with probably about 70, maybe 80% of what Ted said, which is pretty freaking amazing, because I am a hardcore Christian fundamentalist right winger. And whenever you break things down to a class issue, you see the overlap between the populist right and the populist left. And the whole reason why, and I completely agree with what Ted is saying here, is that the left needs to organize, because if you're going to have a large, complex country, which we have, and we don't agree even on what an American even is anymore, the only thing that's going to hold you together is the social contract that you can do as you want, build a better life for you, then build a better life for your kids. That is going to be the glue that's going to hold together. That's going to give you stability. And right now, the Republican Party, they don't care, because they're just all about their being the good little corporate whores that they are. And the Democrats are the exact same way. No, to Manila's point, the whole reason why they bring in immigrants, it takes a lot of time and effort and money to argue a case and convince your voters that you have the better ideas. So how do you combat this problem? You import the third world, you drive down wages, maximize your profit margin, and then you don't have to argue anything, because you have a permanent serf class. And that's one of the biggest takeaways that I see between the left and the right that people are able to can go into, is in order to have any kind of a chance at all, people have got to be class conscious. People have got to understand that the working class does have power, and that by working together, we can actually build a better life for the next generation. And that's why the Democrats are playing race politics. That's why the Republicans are doing the same thing. They want us all fighting each other. And that's the biggest takeaway.
That's happening.
100%. That's how the British conquered India. I mean, it's the exact same thing. There's nothing new under the sun. And true. I mean, and I'm telling you, again, as a right winger, if y'all watch the show for any length of time, y'all know we've had some pretty epic dust ups on this show over immigration, the trannies, all of it. But on the big things that matter, like, how am I going to pay my bills? How am I going to educate my kids? What is life going to look like 10 years from now?
What if I get a terrible disease? What if I lose my job through no fault of my own?
Because right now the answer from the Democrats and the Republicans is go to hell, drop dead. We don't need you. We will replace you. You are a replaceable cog. You're not a person. You don't have agency. By all means, just go play on your Xbox, and we don't need you. We will replace you. And Ted's book offers a blueprint on how to start thinking outside of the Fox News and MSDNC paradigm. Yeah. Start thinking for yourself. That's what the book does. And I cannot recommend it enough.
Thank you, Robbie. I appreciate that.
And Mary Girl, our regular in the Rumble chat, says the farthest left anyone in government got was Henry Wallace. Good luck ever getting anyone like that close again.
Yeah, well, that's the thing is there's no solution inside the system. There's no solution inside electoral politics. That's a dead end. And I don't care where you are politically. If you care, unless you have a tremendous desire to prop up corporations and their profits at our expense, you need to be, whether you're left or right, you need to be working outside of the two-party system to build up independent parties that are going to represent people's needs. And I mean, I have far more in common with the like populist right than I do with like corporate Democrats.
So how did that happen, Ted? How did the farthest of the far right, how were they able to narrative capture and steal this away from what has long been forever and a day an issue for the far left, which is where I would assume, I would say that that's where I got most of my fundamental core values from growing up, right? And I reluctantly said I'd sign up as a Democrat when I was 18 because that's just, you had to rally there. That's just kind of what it was. But my values, fundamentally, the core values were more aligned with what was considered far progressive left. But then I was torn on the whole immigration issue and am I being humanitarian by rejecting them? Am I, my dad's interest, which should be my interest, because if my dad's wages go down, then we don't eat, so I was torn between them and that. And then you have now, fast forward 25 years, the narrative capture was picked up by the right. How did the far left allow that?
Well, the far left the far left didn't allow anything. The far left got marginalized by McCarthyism, and ultimately, the far left was allowed to play inside the Democratic tent until the 1990s when the Clintons came along, and then they were expelled from the Democratic Party. The far left is homeless. There are tens of millions of people who, if there was a far left party, a socialist party, would vote. And they don't vote because they don't vote for either party. They just sit at home on election day, much in the same way that basically the far left is waiting for its Donald Trump. Donald Trump motivated he motivated a lot of right wingers who never voted because they didn't like either party to vote for him. Right?
That's me.
So that could happen on the far left. It's the Democratic Party that allowed the Republican Party to take over these issues. And basically the Republican Party never would have taken them over if not for, the Tea Party, which ultimately morphed into MAGA. It just would not have happened. The Democrats, they had basically the Democratic fundraising and organizational model was reliant on big labor. For throughout the 1960s, 70s, and 80s, like the labor unions that you mentioned, they brought out the vote and brought the money to the Democratic Party and the contributions. But as labor shrank and fewer Americans who were workers were members of labor unions, and then Reagan really gutted the labor union movement. Then people like Bill Clinton realized in the early 90s, there's not much money coming in from labor. But what if we reached out to the big corporations and started getting corporate funding? But the thing is, and they started doing that. But of course, the corporations are like, okay, we'll fund you, but you can't be in favor of workers' rights. You can't be pushing to increase the minimum wage or
union busting coming out of even people like.
And you've got to be okay with that.
Biden.
So the Democrats said, okay. And that's where the Democratic Party has been ever since. They've become a corporatist. Now, the Republicans used to be a corporatist party as well. And so for a little while there, if you think about like during the Bush years, both major parties are corporatist parties, totally.
Yeah,
and what happened is the GOP has now been captured by Trumpism. Unfortunately, Trump is too corporatist for my taste, I think, and probably for many other people's as well. To be populist. I mean, but he had a veneer. There's certainly a populist. Populism lives under Trumpism. It's part of it. He hasn't abandoned it completely. But, the corporations are kind of having their way. But the Democrats threw it away, and they decided to become fully corporatist. So the far left is homeless. There is no place. I mean, the Green Party is the only game in town, and it's not even on the ballot in every state. And they don't have candidates at the local or state level, right? Who's your Green Party gubernatorial candidate? You don't have one.
I got to ask you, being that you're half French, we're seeing, I don't know if this could be a model, but I feel like the so-called far right Marine Le Pen's party in France, they seem to have struck up an alliance with the far left, where their goals and aims do overlap. Why are the French able to do that and we aren't?
I think I can help answer that question right now because I'm looking at the Rumble chat. And first off, editor Tiki, I'm not getting paid a dime to talk about Ted's book. Matter of fact, I'm not getting paid a dime to do this show. So there's no profit margin here. I'm saying what I'm saying because I'm saying what I'm saying because I read the book and I agree with it. So that's it. There's no profit margin here for me. I care about my kids. That's what I'm talking about this. And then
you're considered populist, right?
Oh, very much so. Like I'm politically homeless. I'm a Ted Massey, or not Ted Massey. I'm a Massey. I'm a Massey guy.
Thomas
Trump
Massey.
hates me.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm a Thomas Massey.
I
guy.
love Thomas Massey.
And Mr. Lee. Now you're talking about MAGA Americans are being replaced because they're ignorant. Manila, that's why there won't be an alliance between the left and the right, is because of dumbass comments like that. As long as people keep thinking that if you want to have closed borders and actually take care of the American people first, and then people on the left who are directly being punished by the open borders immigration system of our government is going to call me a Nazi when I'm looking up for their interests, there is no alliance there to be made.
Well, I mean, if you look at the comments that George Galloway, who is very far left, right? Like he's very far left, and he's over there in the UK, and even he is against open borders. He says so. He says because he's a pro-union guy. And I think my politics
open borders would be fine under a unified global communist government. That allows people to live wherever they want. But even then, here's the thing. My ex-wife really saw
the Soviet Union, for example.
So when NAFTA started, I was married, and my ex-wife and I went to a teach-in at Berkeley about NAFTA. And we came out of it, and man, she had an amazing ability to sum things up really very lucidly and clearly. And she said, well, the problem with free trade, she said, is that labor is fluid and mobile. And capital is fluid and mobile, and labor is stationary. So labor can't keep up, and it's like that's exactly the problem, right? I mean, so let's just say I'm a capitalist and I have a sneaker factory. I can have my sneaker factory in Indonesia or Malaysia and pay pennies on the dollar for what it would cost. And even with the cost of shipping those sneakers from Indonesia to the United States, I still will pay less to make those sneakers and distribute them than if I made them in the States. The problem is, let's say I'm like, I look up online and say, the highest wages in the world are paid in, say, Qatar, which I think for a long time Qatar had the highest wages in the world. It's like, well, I can't go to Qatar and get a work permit or just show up and say, hi, I'm Ted. I want to live in Qatar. Because, there's national barriers and everything. And even if you got rid of all the national borders and we're all in one world government, it's still a problem because, hey, I don't speak Arabic. And like my family and my friends are here and my cat are here in the United States. So I don't want to just pack up. So people tend to be stuck where they are, but capital goes wherever labor is cheap. So yeah, that's the problem here, and that's why you need government regulation to step in and provide an equal playing field for labor and management.
Yeah, and then the other argument is that America needs more immigration because they're not making babies. Well, maybe if people are actually getting paid an actual wage, they could start having
up with inflation.
Babies. Yeah, I mean, well, think about it. I mean, inflation. Real inflation has gone up 23 to 27% over the last 3 years.
True.
Wages have decreased. Even let's just say, for example, if you're working a full-time job, all right, if you get a 3% pay raise at your job, what's greater, your pay raise or the rate of inflation? And then you have the feminists saying, "Oh no, you can't have a baby." Do you have any idea? If you get married, if you take a man's last name, and then if you start having these things called babies, what you're doing is that you are then becoming a tool of the patriarchy.
Yes.
And then you declare war on the family. So you have those two things going against you. Is there a birth rate problem? Yes, there is. And one of the ways that you deal with it is by addressing the class issue. That's how you do it. This is not hard. If a dumb hick in Montana like me can figure this out, surely some of the brilliant people there in the chat can pick this up too. Just saying.
Yeah, this is being that this is May 1st, it's May Day. This video right here. This is May Day rally in France just a few hours ago, because it's probably getting close to the evening over in France. And Adrian in our chat, a subscriber and a regular viewer in the Rumble room. He's a British guy living in France, and he says that everybody has today off. He was at the beach, so he popped in for a little bit to see what we were covering because he's at the beach. Because France gave people this day off, and many people went and did this. Went to this May Day rally to voice what I would say, Ted, what was also echoed through in France at the Yellow Vest protests that we saw ongoing before the COVID lockdowns. And that's exactly what the Yellow Vest movement was, right? And the French don't give a fuck. Like, they will go out there if they are not happy, if their souffle fell down before it got to their table, they're pissed. They're out on the streets. Like, they will burn trash cans. That's the French. America, not so much, Ted. Why? Being half of both, half and half.
I think what happens is, I don't think you're going to have trash cans burning. I think the country's going to explode. That's my fear.
Or implode.
Why are the French more vocal and less complacent and less? I mean, like I said, with the Yellow Vest protests, like, they didn't give a fuck. They were out there freezing cold, didn't care. They were out there sweating their asses off or freezing their asses off because it was a 2-year hike in retirement, was it? And like a 23-cent hike in per liter of gas. And they were pissed.
The French have more of a culture of wins for the left, right? I mean, the French Revolution is a true left-wing revolution. American Revolution is not. You know, in a real revolution, one class of landowners and elites is replaced by another one. That's what happened in France, happened in China, like the landlord class was thrown out in China, right? And in 1949, the American Revolution is just a revolution of rich American colonists who don't want to pay their taxes back to England, who were, by the way, not really. They were kind of underpaying their taxes in the first place. So the English are kind of like, "What's wrong with you guys? We're like really nice to you," which was true. The thing is, the government repression of like early labor unions in the 19th century was absolutely brutal. The crackdown on like the socialist left during the Red Scare, the Palmer raids in the 1920s, the 1950s Red Scare, absolutely ruthless and brutal. So it's been really hard for the left to catch on. And I think a lot of it has to do with like America being a colony, right? France is a 2,000-year-old country, European country, sure. But colonies tend to be run ruthlessly. It's for rugged individualism. Think about Australia. It's a colony, right? And these countries tend to be suppressed brutally. It's hard to get a left off the ground in a country like the U.S.
Yeah, I guess because the roots of leftism in the U.S. actually the roots never really took root. I guess that's the point, right? I guess that's the point of why we don't have it here. Is like, if anybody has, I'm no green thumb and I'm no expert in like botany or plants or anything, but because I've failed so many times trying to plant things, now that I'm a homeowner, you kind of see that when you buy something from Home Depot, like in the flower pot, right, or whatever, and you pull it out of its thing and it has little thin tentacle of roots. Sure. Right. And then you go and dig your hole or whatever, and you go plant the thing. And, some of my flowers, some of my little bushes did take root, because you go and try to tug on them a little bit, and they grew. That means their little roots expanded and went out. And then there are some little flowers, little bushes that never did that you go touch the stalk and you kind of go, and they just come right up because it never took root. And I think that's kind of what the American left is that it was the little bush of flowers that you got at Home Depot that just didn't ever really take root. And the culture just wasn't there for it based on its founding. I guess you're right, Ted. I mean, we're only a 249-year-old country versus thousands of years in France, thousands of years in Russia. You know, we don't have that kind of history behind us. And Robbie thinks we're going to implode before we get to our 250th.
well, I think that the biggest reason, and Ted probably would agree with me on this, is that ultimately at least the mythology behind what they call the American experiment, and then the traditional left, like what Ted espouses, is all about agency and authority. And we reflected that here on this show. For example, last week when we had our show about parental rights versus the school. Mm-hmm. Who has the ultimate say? Who has the power? Do I have the power to determine my own destiny and that of my children, or does the state have that control? That's the big divide between the right and the left is about agency. Leftism is about collectivism. It's about almost like a homogeneity. Is like you sacrifice your individualism for the collective,
the greater good. Yeah.
And then the right is like, no, it's like we'll go along with that to a point. However, it comes down to jurisdictions. There is a power you do not have, and that is a line I will not cross. If you try to cross it, I will fight you. And I think that's the real divide between the right and the left. And I think that's why leftism really hasn't taken off in this country. But now leftism and classism, I think that those things are not mutually are not necessarily divorced, because the right and the left both need to come to realize that our ruling oligarchs are killing us all. And that unless we fight them, the arguments over should we allow a pervert to read books in our schools to our kids doesn't really matter if you can't even afford to buy groceries next month.
I would also say that the left really does need to address, Robbie, your concern there. I mean, look, the left should not be in the business of telling people what pronouns they need to use or what they should talk about or how they should talk about things, what vocabulary they should, or, to basically tell people, how they should think about things. It's like people, I mean, being part of the left means it's about freedom, right? You have no freedom if you can't feed your family or if you can't pay your rent. You have no freedom if you have to suck up to your boss because you're terrified of losing your job. And what's freedom for? Freedom in large part is about self-expression. So, the left, especially the woke left and the identity politics left, has allowed themselves to fall into the trap of spending all their time policing other people's language rather than fighting for individual rights, right? Like our right, like you have a right as a worker. It's fundamentally decent to be paid enough to pay your bills. That's a right. Like you have a right in a rich country to not have your money being sent to foreign dictatorships to fight stupid wars, and instead have a right to have a roof over your head and eat dinner tonight. You have a right when you get a horrible disease to go see a doctor. These are rights. These are healthcare. It's decency. And really, truly, like when we spend our time, even if I thought it was important, which I don't, if I thought it was important to, tell you how, like, don't call them trannies, Robbie. It's like if I want to spend my time while I'm talking to you about that, we're not rolling up our sleeves and taking on the bosses. Right. And I'm wasting my time, and I'm wasting your time too. So it's stupid.
Calling me a Nazi isn't an argument. So I mean, if we're able to come in, if we're able to agree, that Israel's not the 51st state,
and you're not my enemy. The bosses are the enemy.
Of course, but this is the game. This is India versus Pakistan right now. This is what they're trying to do to us. Mm-hmm. Like, for example, like right there in the Rumble chat, Lee, I'm right there with you. I agree with you. Israel needs to be cut off. It's not the 51st state. Cut them off. Where the divide between us happens is whenever I say, well, Nate, no, in order to address find the bosses, maybe we should cut the spigot of cheap labor.
By the way, that's something that the authentic left. If you have nation states, if you're going to have borders, which we do, that's our system, then like obviously open borders are a tool to provide cheap labor, right? You exploit you exploit the immigrants and you abuse them. In some cases, you don't even pay them at all. Then it drives everyone wages down. Like the bosses are laughing. The borders were open for years under both parties.
Yes.
Because Republicans were the party of used to be the party of the corporations, and big business loves the cheap labor, and Democrats like it too. And they knew that the kids of the migrants were more likely to be Democratic voters, although they thought that. It turned out not to be really true, but they thought that.
Yeah. I mean, and that I guess the kind of going back to Manila's question,
open borders are crazy. Open borders make no sense at all.
No, at all. And it just kind of just going back to Manila's point. Can the right and the left?
It's an oxymoron. It's not a border if it's open.
Agreed. I mean, can the populist right and the populist left agree to work together? I don't know. Here's the question.
If the enemy is big enough, history shows, yeah.
You two are friends.
Enough, of course we are.
So
and if we both hate the enemy a lot, then we'll set aside our differences.
Enemy of my enemy, right?
Right.
Listen, I'm looking forward to having Ted Rall, communist, come to my house to meet my family, sit at my table, and have a dinner with me.
Is that happening soon?
Ted is not my enemy.
No, certainly not. We're friends.
But I mean, calling me a Nazi because I want the borders to be closed and deport the illegals.
Well, because
that's the problem. That's what the bosses want to happen. That's what the people want to have happen.
They put up that mirage of like, well, it's coming from a white face, and do you hear that Southern accent, that drawl? Then clearly,
wait, Robbie has a drawl.
Okay, maybe we do.
No, I've never noticed. No, y'all have an accent. No, honestly, y'all
everyone has an accent.
Yeah, but y'all have a like Manila. She doesn't really sound like nothing, but Ted, you sound like an out and out Yankee.
Oh,
wait a minute.
I'm sure. Yeah, I've taken tests.
I don't sound like I'm from anywhere, and Ted sounds like a Yankee.
Ted sounds like a Yankee. You just sound like you're just out in the neither. I don't know.
According to the tests I've taken, I sound like I'm from sort of northeastern Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
Sort of north of Philly, sort of. That's what they say.
No, the real question is, do you call it Coke or Pop? If you call it Coke, you're Southern.
Coke, Pop.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
Soda.
With soda.
No, it's Coke.
Soda.
No, what kind of Coke do you want? If you say,
although
Coke?
Where I grew up, it was Pop in Ohio.
Yeah, that's my point. Ohio. I mean, it's just
soda in California.
That's my point. If you're Southern, it's all Coke. No, what kind of Coke do you want? I'll take a Mountain Dew.
Really? Oh, yeah. So if you want a Dr. Pepper, I see.
Yeah.
What kind of? So the waitress says, "What kind of Coke do you want?" You say,
"Yeah."
Tab.
Menu and say, "Dr. Pepper."
Yeah.
That's so strange. Okay.
Well, y'all are strange people.
So weird.
I think so. I may have been messing up. I guess I assumed they only had Coke, and that I could either get Coke Zero or Diet Coke or Coke.
Yeah. What kind of Coke do you want?
Diet Coke Clear. Coke Clear might be coming back because RFK Jr. is trying to ban all the food color, like additional additives in food coloring. So
isn't Coke Clear it's colored? It's just colored a different color, isn't it?
No, it's clear. It's like 7-Up.
Yeah, but that is a color. You know what I mean?
I mean, it's not brown or dark brown.
No, I know.
So that's clear.
I researched an article about hangovers parenthetically, and apparently, like, you'll get worse the darker the liquor, the worse the hangover. Yeah,
you didn't know
and
that?
It's because of the preservatives.
Yeah,
it's the preservatives in the liquor that do it. No, I didn't know that.
Yeah, I mean, well, I guess so. I knew this before I went.
I always knew that vodka agreed with me.
Vodka. Yeah, vodka. Well, because you would be either lacking or probably lacking some certain enzyme to break down the food coloring and break down the whatever other additives that make rum or whiskey or whatever, that you lack those enzymes.
Jägermeister is like a toxin to me. Like one shot of Jägermeister, I'm like down for the count. Though. Like I could die.
What the hell's a Jägermeister?
It's a disgusting, it's reddish brown, sweet liqueur.
It's gross. A Jaeger shot. People used to drop those into their beer. But anyway, I'm straying way off and going right back to the food thing. But anyway, that is a whole, like,
and we should wrap it up.
That matters too. Yeah, that matters too, because Ted, I can make these two things connect. The whole RFK Jr. Maha movement and making people healthy again is, there goes Robbie, is that is that the majority of the people that these food additives and horrible things in our food system, the majority of the people that are impacted by that are the working class, are the workers. These are the people that are suffering and dying because we're buying and eating all of these things that are wrapped in plastic and so that's like, I go to Walmart for the most part, right? I try to, if I can, avoid buying certain things, and if the farmer's market rolls into my neighborhood, then I try to go there and try to get fresh things when I can. But you know, I'm a Walmart shopper. I'm a regular working person, right? We're the ones that are dying from this bad diet. I mean, Donald Trump's a bad example of this because he has the money, but he prefers to eat the McDonald's, serve it at the White House even. But Melania, I don't think eats the same dinner as him. That's all I'll say, Ted.
By the way, a little breaking news before we go. Michael Waltz is out.
He's already out?
He's out as National Security Advisor. He's gone. And one of his deputies,
I'm seeing expected to depart.
Alex Wong, is also gone. He's this deputy who worked on North Korea. And most considered the front runner to replace Mike Waltz as National Security Advisor is, drum roll.
Oh, wait.
Guess. You know.
Pompeo.
No. It's not that bad. Steve Witkoff.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
But I like him as a diplomat right now.
Well, you know, maybe he'll have two. He can have two portfolios. That's not
Henry
unheard of.
Had two jobs.
Just what I was going to say.
Oh,
that's right.
So I mean, it's possible, and that's so funny because he's never worked in government. Steve Witkoff.
No, but he's doing. You know, I mean, he's doing a good job. He's doing a very good job. Yeah.
And he probably won't have these stupid like, I need a signal chat group.
I know. That's my first reaction. More time for Signal.
He's gonna have his own Signal channel soon, and that's you know.
Well,
hey, welcome to streaming, Mike Waltz.
So Mike Waltz will lay low for approximately 6 months, and then he will turn up on Fox.
Oh, for sure.
That's what happens here. Yeah, that's how this goes.
In the interim, I'm gonna predict he is gonna start laying the groundwork for a podcast.
Ooh, probably. Yep. Just what the world needs, more podcasts.
He's gonna need some income between now and getting the Fox deal, right? He's gonna need some income, so he is,
and also to show Fox that he can do it.
Right. It's kind of an audition, but also make some side hustle money. So, well,
all right, guys.
You know, he bungled. What?
I go.
That's it.
All right, guys. Off to physical therapy to fix my wrist.
Happy May Day, everybody! All the workers out there, including us who are non-workers. We don't have jobs, but you know, go check out Ted's book. It's out today. I saw it. It's live on Amazon now.
Yeah, just the easiest way to get it is Rall.com. You have all the choices, including the Amazon link. You can just go to Amazon and get it. It's live on Amazon. You can buy an autographed copy through my website, and I get a lot more of the money if you do that. It's not like it's a king's ransom. I make like $6 a copy, but
it adds up.
It'll be like $1 on Amazon, but whatever. And anyway, that's that. So you can also order it at your local bookstore. You have to bring them the ISBN number, which is on my website, and you can. Although it's probably in their system, it's being distributed through Ingram. So, and if you want me to come to your town and do a talk, do an appearance,
do a TED Talk.
I'll do a TED Talk. I will be your TED Talk. Let me know. Get in touch. Rall.com/contact. And all I need really is either a college, university, or a bookstore to sponsor and publicize the appearance. That's the key metric here. And then I'll show up.
Simple as that. Find a hall for Ted to talk at, and you'll work out the rest. So that'll be that. All right, guys. Thank you for tuning in. Happy May Day. Keep fighting, as Scary Girl, our regular viewer, says. Keep fighting the bastards. Adios, amigos. See you tomorrow.
Adios.
Bye.